first question, and this is going to set the tone
Oh.
for the entire interview.
Uh-oh.
Kirk or Picard?
Picard.
Okay, why?
He's more thoughtful. He was a better listening leader. I think he had more capacity for enlightened leadership than Kirk.
He kept his shirt on for most of the episodes as well, right?
He's a fit guy. But,
who were you on the ISS then? Kirk or Picard?
Neither. Neither. I was crewman number 5.
In the red shirt.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, let's start at the beginning, which is always a good place to start. So here's this 9-year-old kid who wants to be an astronaut. What 9-year-old kid doesn't want to be an astronaut or a firefighter or a police officer? And most grow out of that. What else did you want to be?
I was raised during the space race. When I first became aware of anything, the thing that was going on was we're going to the moon, and we're going to beat the Soviets to get there. It had all of the comic book attributes going with it. A thing that was right on the edge of possible, and bravery and intrigue and danger. It was just hugely intoxicatingly seductive as a kid growing up in the late 60s. So yeah, it very much caught my attention, and that's why I decided to be an astronaut. And that 9-year-old boy chose my career that night in July of '69. Be an astronaut when I grew up.
So July of '69, you're watching Neil Armstrong step on the moon.
Yeah.
You're 9 years old. When we're 9 years old, we have deep thoughts, and things affect us deeper than we even know. Did you know then how deeply that affected you, or were you just walking home that night afterwards just thinking, yeah, I want to be an astronaut? Or did it deeply, deeply impact you that night?
I think it fundamentally set the course of my life that night, whether I could recognize it at the time or not. You have deep thoughts as a 9-year-old, but you don't have much perspective yet, and you have a fearless view of things because you haven't learned that a lot of things are impossible, or at least maybe something that's going to cause you fear. So I just bravely and resolutely, it almost was decided for me internally that night that when I grow up, I'm going to be an astronaut. Why not? Why not? Why wouldn't you?
And did mom and dad go, oh, that's nice, Chris?
Oh, I didn't tell anybody.
Oh, okay.
No, who are you going to tell? Who's going to believe you?
Who was the first person you told that dream?
Myself.
And then?
Gosh, I don't know who after that. It was incremental. It's just what I pursued. When I chose a project in grade 5, I decided to do it on the moon. And I remember sitting on the kitchen floor with my mom with a balloon that we were using plaster of Paris, and we had National Geographic's moon map next to you, and we're putting all the right mares and craters on the moon. So it was not so much that I had to tell someone or trumpet that I was going to be an astronaut. I just was really interested in astronaut things and in space exploration, and started trying to turn myself into one and learn the things. I did a project on the sun. Above my bed was the big National Geographic poster of the moon. Above my desk through high school, but really through college, was a picture of the space shuttle. It was all just the motivation that was behind a lot of my incremental decision making was that 9-year-old kid decided you're going to be an astronaut, so you better get the skills and understand what you need to do and be ready so that when someone says, hey, we're looking for astronauts, you're standing there going, I got some of the skills, pick me. That's really how the process happened.
Okay, I'm going to jump around a bit then because I'm interested then I guess when was the first time you saw the moon outside of the Earth's atmosphere? Was it Mir?
Yes, on my first shuttle flight back in 1995, we flew in Atlantis, and we went up and docked with the space station Mir and built a section of space station Mir.
So 9 years old, you're walking home, you're looking up through the trees, and you see the moon. How old were you on Mir?
I was 36.
35 years old, you see the moon for the first time outside of the Earth's atmosphere, and it's got to be a different kind of view. What was that what was that like?
You don't often look out into deep space when you're in orbit because the world is so omnipresent. When you see the moon, normally it's when it's rising and setting, somewhere near the horizon. And it's fabulous to look at because you're going around the world so fast that the moon pops into view. And it comes up through the atmosphere and is magical, like the Earth just produced an egg of the moon, and chunk, and there it is. And as soon as it clears the atmosphere, of course, it is just so crystal clear. There's nothing between you and the moon for the first time in your life. And I stole time during those flights to try and acknowledge my 9-year-old boy self to go see that thing, to look at it. I mean, you're busy on a shuttle flight. You got a parade of activities that is, the clock is ticking and Houston's calling, and you got this thing and then this thing and then this thing. But you just have to steal the time. And you know, when we're supposed to be asleep, I would have my nose to the glass looking at the world and looking at the moon. And right after launch, 90 minutes after launch, we came right back around the world and up and over top of Stag Island. 90 minutes after launch, looking straight down on where I decided to be an astronaut. And that was my first real reflection from space, of seeing the place where I'd decided, 27 years prior, and realizing that this part of the journey was now complete, and I could see it, and trying to somehow put all that together in my head and encapsulate it and internalize it while we're racing across the world at 8 kilometers a second.
So you moved to the corn farm in Milton, I should say.
Yeah.
In Milton. And the dream did not die. It got stronger.
The dream was constantly reinforced by my own nature, in that when I started studying the things that I thought I might have to study, they were all interesting. I was like, hey, this is cool. I like this stuff. I like learning how things work. I like learning with the Air Cadets how an internal combustion engine works, and how an airplane works, and why do they fly, and who thought of that? And there's math behind that. Someone figured this out. Some Tsiolkovsky, this Russian math teacher in a rural town studying by candlelight, invented spaceflight. This guy figured this stuff out, and so it was all just like one constant series of little delightful packages opening, revelations occurring as I was growing up, going, this is all interesting to me, and so I'm going to keep nursing and herding my life along in this direction, because it suits me and I like it. And so the dream, it's not as if the dream was an external thing to myself. It was just a constantly reinforced sense of what I liked and what I wanted to do.
Okay, let's talk about my name for the book then. Do you remember what I suggested you name the book?
Square Astronaut Round Hole.
There you go.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. It hasn't been published. It comes out on Tuesday.
Yeah.
So you still have time to call the books back, redo the covers. You just have to redo the covers.
Actually, if I just went in with a Sharpie, I could redo them all by hand. Yeah.
Why? Okay, now explain to folks. Why did I suggest that as the title? You reference it in your book very early on in the book, and to me, if I can just tell you for me personally, I think that statement and one other statement were the most profound for me in the book.
I'm interested to hear what your other statement is, but the day that you go out on a spacewalk, imagine if that was the day today for you. You knew today that you were going to pull yourself out of a spaceship and be outside, alone in the universe, in between the world and the blackness of everything. That was going to happen to you today. It's a pretty big day in your life, especially if you watched Neil and Buzz do it back when you were 9 years old on the moon. But it's huge and grandiose, and it ought to have a soundtrack, because it's a big day, and there's magnificent things happening. But it's also incredibly prosaic and procedural. You have to get through these 462 steps before you even open the hatch. And as glorious as you want it to be, each one of those steps is life or death, or at least success or failure. And you get finally to this step where you're going to go outside, and the hatch is like a manhole. And it is, I guess, a manhole. But it's like a manhole cover. And you have to turn this huge crank. That was my job, because I was the lead spacewalker. Turn the big crank, open up the seals, pull the dogs off the metal plates, and then and it comes up and latch. You can't hear it because you're in vacuum, but you feel this thing mechanically latch up into place. And you still can't see the universe because there's a fabric cover over the hole. So you reach down, and it's hard to reach, and you're pushing the Velcro out of the way. And finally, this thing swings out of the way, and suddenly there's the universe. And it shouldn't be there, because you were in this little tiny booth. It's like if you were in your house and you're in the bathroom, you go to the bathroom, you step out, and you are now stepping out onto the top of Everest. It's like, how did I get here all of a sudden? How could I have been in this place and now I'm in this place? But to get yourself from inside, you're wearing a spaceship. It's a one-person spaceship. That's what keeps you alive. We call it a suit, but it's really a spaceship. It has life support and communications, and it's got a rocket pack on it, a jet pack. It's, it's a complete one-person spaceship, and it's bulky. We have a bunch of videos out this week that show what life on Earth might be like if you were wearing one of these suits, just for entertainment, and trying to get that suit maneuvered out of this. And it's inherently square, because when the engineers were designing it, they were going, what's a nice efficient shape to make the radios and the life support stuff? So they made this big square thing on your back, like some sort of 1960s backpacker going across Europe with a Canadian flag on. And you need to pull yourself out through this little tiny hole. And you are this big square astronaut. And it just fits. And if you get a little bit crooked, you get wedged and you can't get out, which is an embarrassing way to start your glorious spacewalk. And you can get all tied up in your tether in your suit and get snagged, which happens to us as well. So you're being very meticulous. But the bottom line is you are trying to put one particular set of assumptions and designs and make it go through a set of constraints in order to get somewhere that's really hard to get to. And so I think it'd be a great title for the book. I agree.
And that's what's wonderful about this book, is it's very profound. It's full of life lessons. And in order to be a success in anything you do, you have to know how to put a square peg into a round hole. you have to be able to do it and make it fit.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you want to know what the other profound statement was that I thought in the book? And you're going to find it kind of silly, but it's all right. The small things are the most profound sometimes. Let me see if I can find it.
I take great delight every day in trying to notice those things as they're going by.
So this was just before a launch.
Yep.
One morning, a strange thought occurs to me shortly after waking. The socks I am about to put on are the ones I'll wear to leave Earth.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, when you the minutia of everything that you're about to face, and as you're putting on your socks, you're thinking, I'm going to be wearing these in orbit.
Yeah. Isn't that a weird day to wake up where you're looking down and you're doing something that you've taken for granted, but suddenly, because of a different set of circumstances, you have a whole different perspective, and you're looking down going, man, I've been putting on socks for the last 35 years, but these socks are the ones that are going to take me to space. How could that possibly be? And it turns your sock donning into kind of a special event in your day. But the reason it's that way in the book is I was just trying to show the how it affects you. You recognize the enormity of what you're about to happen. You recognize the danger of what's about to happen, but you also recognize the personal significance of it, and that something that you took for granted up until now, or thought about theoretically up until now, is actually going to happen today. And your socks are never going to be the same from then on.
This may be a silly question. Did you give thought to those socks any more that day, or was that
when I took them off that night? Sure. Actually, I think I wore them for 2 days because you're busy and you're not nobody's looking at how you're dressed, and you don't want to spend. Nobody cares if you put fresh socks on. But yeah, I thought about it when I took them off when I get up there, and said thank you to my socks for taking me to a new place I'd never been before.
Well, okay, we got to give a shout out to the Air Cadets, because it's my alma mater as well. 547 Canuck Squadron, North Bay. You were 820 Optimus Squadron at the time. It's now 820 Chris Hadfield Squadron, which is an honor.
It's a great organization. The Air. I mean, we are so lucky living in Canada, and most people don't even recognize it. I've lived in a lot of different places. I've traveled to many, many countries, and the things that exist in Canada that are just given to us here. If you want to do this, you can join Boy Scouts, you can join Girl Guides, you can join Air Cadets, you can get this scholarship, you can go on this field trip, you can do all these things. There's public libraries, and there's just so much capability waiting for a young Canadian to just go take advantage of. And we provide those for our people, which is enviable in the whole world. And I chose as a young teenager to get into Air Cadets. Great organization. They taught me about leadership. They taught me about self-discipline. They taught me about work. They taught me how things work. And then they taught me to fly. I learned how to fly gliders, and I learned how to fly powered airplanes. They gave me, if you're trying to build a pyramid where the top of the pyramid is go fly a spaceship, they gave me so much of the structural material that I needed, of the big base that would allow me to then become an astronaut. great place to start if you want to fly in space.
I'm going through this book and I say to myself, why can't I be more like Chris Hadfield? Like, honestly, you bother me, Chris, because are you really this positive in all the millions of hours that you must have trained just for a few brief days and, as well as it turns out, months in space? But you really emphasize that you have to enjoy that time as well. You have to enjoy the journey rather than just enjoy the destination.
Oh, it's so critical to having a fun life and a satisfied life. How do you define fun in your life? I mean, you can define fun by eating ice cream and going on a ride at the X. Those are fun. But if you do them every day, the fun fades, I think. And so how do you define fun? And a lot of it comes in noticing all the beautiful little things that are happening all the time around you. Noticing the creativity and the variety and the fall colors in the trees and the expression on someone's face, or just noticing the beauty of what's happening around you on a daily basis. But then also the effect that it has on you. And how are you going to feel about how this day is going? And was this the best day in your life? Was this a day with a lot of delights in it, or was this a day where horrible things happen? And a lot of that's just a personal choice, right? You can decide, this was a pretty good day. I got breakfast, lunch, supper. I met some people I never met before. I had a donut, and it was a great donut, and whatever. This was a really good day. Or you can say, terrible day. I didn't get anything done. It's almost all an internal choice. And I decided a long time ago that if I was expecting space flight to be the only real measure of whether I was happy or not, I was dooming myself to failure. Because one, the multi-year training preparation period was actually my life. The space flight was a short period at the end. My life was this period in between. And if my only measure of joy and success was that thing at the end, then I'm just setting myself up for a miserable life. Why not treat every single day as like a little space flight and have a great time at it? And it's just your life. Why not? You get to choose. You choose what you do every day, and you can choose whether you hate it or love it. And I just decided a long, long time ago that I was going to try and enjoy myself through life and really have a good time with it. And you could have viewed my life as a lot of misery, I think. Years and years. I am supremely qualified to do things that I'm never going to do. I spent years training to do something that I'm never going to do. To me, that's great. I have this skill, this thing I learned to do. I got to get taught by someone super expert. It was a lot of fun. I learned new stuff. I stretched my mind. It doesn't really matter. The purpose of it wasn't just to do the thing at the end. The purpose of it was the process. And I think it makes life more interesting.
Christmas 1981.
Christmas 81. Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. I was going to let you try and figure that one out.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Christmas
2 days prior.
1981,
Yeah.
You got married
Yes.
to Helene.
Yeah, in Waterloo, Ontario, actually, at a beautiful little church in Waterloo,
Glad you
Ontario.
remembered.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, well, it was a couple days before Christmas. I was trying to remember what gifts I got for Christmas 81. Yes.
This I'm trying to decide in the book about your relationship. You do talk about it a lot. You don't delve into it, but you talk about her and her influence on you a lot. She was your support, but she was also your ground, I found.
Mm-hmm.
If you could go back, do you feel sometimes maybe you should have been there more often? There's one point in your book where you say that when you're away, you realize, my gosh, they've learned to live without me.
Yep.
And I'm in the way here at home sometimes.
Yeah.
Or is that just the path that was chosen and that you two are okay with that?
Well, I mean, life is complicated. Relationships are the most complicated thing. Machinery is simple. Orbital mechanics is predictable. People are complicated. And even explaining yourself to yourself is complicated. And trying to make it through an entire life with one other person in a shared relationship, it's hard. I mean, there's a natural reason for it, of course, for raising children and to always have someone to remark on the wonders with. I mean, it's a good way to live life. But boy, we've made lots of mistakes, and we're just two fallible people, just like any other couple. But we've been together 38 years as well, since Christmas, 1981. And I think there are lots of things I would take back. Sure, there's lots of things I wish, I wish I'd paid a little more attention or done this thing or taken this time. But you can't go backwards. And every single day is your expectations sacrificed on the altar of reality. Every single day. You woke up in the morning going, okay, today I'm going to do this with the kids, I'm going to get this done. But then the day just unfolds itself, and you can't control everything. And at the end of the day, you look back and go, well, I got 20% of the stuff done that I wanted to, and I messed this up, and man, okay, I'll try again tomorrow. See if I can get it better tomorrow. And it takes a lot of strength of each person in a relationship to keep it successful for a long time, and a commitment, and a willingness. When people ask me, I say probably the biggest thing is a willingness to change yourself, to recognize the fact that it may not even be a change you want, but if you're not willing to change yourself for the sake of the relationship, then the relationship's probably doomed. You have to accept that that's just a part of sharing life with somebody else. But I really like it when I see something beautiful and I have someone to point that out to, who can share the beauty of something. And I could never have gotten where I am without the support of my family. There's no way. I needed someone to convince me many times, someone to reinforce me, to tell me when I was being an idiot. It's really good to have someone in life to point out to you that, hey, you're behaving like a moron. Stop that. So it's not a simple construct, marriage and a relationship, but I think it's a really good one to go through life. And I count myself enormously lucky that I met Helena early. She was 14 when I met her, and we got married 6 years later. I just count myself very lucky that we have shaped both of ourselves and our lives, that we're now to this stage together and happily married.
I mean, while you were busy climbing that mountain, you were busy, and you wanted to make yourself more busy because you felt that was what you had to do. You had to volunteer for everything. And at one point, she did say to you,
sure,
hey, Chris, you know what? Success is one thing.
Right.
You're doing too much.
She said that many times. Yeah. I remember at the start of test pilot school, she said the same thing. I mean, I was starting test pilot school. This is a hugely demanding year. We flew 32 airplanes in 1 year. 32 different types of airplanes, and I just study all the time. And right at I came into it with my big focus of this is what I need to do to make this year a success and to do it right. And meanwhile, Helena was just trying to sort life out with the kids. They were all little. I think they were all still in diapers almost, and just the two of us trying to make those two things mesh together. And there were some pretty heated words until the two of us got each other's attention enough to notice, hey, my point is valid, but I'm doing this part wrong, and my point is valid, I'm doing this part wrong, and let's try and figure this out and make it work. And we got to a rhythm of what time I would take off, what I would do with the kids. We would take every Sunday morning completely off, go ride the horses together, take the whole family to brunch at the officers' mess, which was fun. And I would do bedtime stories with the kids and sing them a lullaby each. But we both recognized also the importance of that year. This was my big professional threshold to go from being a fighter pilot to being a test pilot. And it was really critical to do that year well. And both of us saw that, but not to sacrifice everything to get there. And that balance, you kind of need to readdress every day. You can get yourself off on a tangent, and you kind of need to regularly remind each other of, hey, I think we're straying a little too far this way or a little too far this way.
And you tried. You tried so hard. I know that when it's Evan, his 16th birthday.
We have 3 children, Kyle, Evan, and Kristen. On my second shuttle launch, it was in April of 2001, and Evan was born in '85, so he was turning 16.
And 16 is an important time.
16's a big birthday. 16 is there's songs sung about turning 16, and his birthday was being hugely overshadowed by the fact that his dad was going to get on a spaceship again and go to space again, and his birthday was just getting lost in the shuffle. And I was in quarantine. I was impervious to it, right? I'm beautifully away, locked into this NASA-provided cocoon, to keep me from getting a cold, but also to sort of keep me away from earthly worries so I could focus on getting ready for space flight. It's kind of a nice bubble to be in, especially when your son is driving your wife crazy. But Helena, when we had some private time together, she reminded me of the fact that I was missing this, and maybe it would be good if I paid attention a little bit to it and didn't just pretend it wasn't going on. And so it occurred to me that I was about to get in and light the biggest birthday candles that anybody had ever seen. And I deliberately mentioned that to the media when I was doing some of the interviews, and that it was my son's birthday and that everybody ought to celebrate, and the launch, should also be celebrated. And then as I got into the spaceship, when you go up the elevator on the launch pad, you go into this little tiny white room with the suit technicians, and they put the last harness on your spacesuit and you crawl into the space shuttle. There's a camera in there because everyone wants to see your face just before you go die or whatever you're going to do. So they got a camera in there. But I knew that I was going to be in there, and so I made a little sign that said, "Happy birthday, Evan." And just before I got to the spaceship, held up the sign. It was the best I could do. And
that was the best anyone could do.
He appreciated it, and I think Helena appreciated it. And also, with one strong reminder from my wife, I managed to do the right thing.
And you do keep mentioning her through this.
Yeah.
That's what I really admire is that you didn't forget that link. That's your grounding.
Sure.
I think throughout everything.
Sure.
She moved with you. She through the umpteen times you moved. She suffered through your defeats. She celebrated with your victories. So,
I think probably the key is that at no point did either of us measure our self-worth by the other person's actions. Never did she ever want to say that, "Respect me because I'm an astronaut's wife." That never occurred to her. In fact, that would be anathema for her to say. And I would never want to say, "Hey, respect me because my wife is a professional chef." It's more like, what? I'm lucky enough to be married to a person who's a professional chef, and she's really busy with that, and that takes all her time. And she sort of notices what I'm doing as well, but she has her own interests and career, and I support her in her decision making. She went off to law school once. She said, "I want to go to law school." I'm like, "Great, cool. That'll be challenging and interesting for you." And she went to law school for a year, full time. And after that decided she didn't like where it was headed and didn't want to be a lawyer. But from a relationship point of view, why would that not be a good thing? She wants to go get more education, something she's passionate about, something she's really been curious about, and get her all busy and working on all that stuff that keeps her mentally engaged with things that are important. It's really healthy for both of us to be pursuing our interests while constantly trading notes and making sure we're not making a hash of it together.
Whenever there's a launch, whether it be Soyuz, whether it be a shuttle, whatever, every piece of payload, everything you bring with you is weighed.
That's right.
You can't bring one small thing. How the heck did a guitar end up on the ISS?
There was a guitar on the Russian space station Mir. And what's interesting was it was in space before Mir. That guitar was on an earlier Russian spaceship called Salyut. Salyut. And when the cosmonauts went up and transferred the vital stuff from the old space station to the new space station on a little spaceship, they brought all the necessary equipment, and they also brought that guitar made in St. Petersburg over to Mir. So that guitar was obviously important to those cosmonauts, because the touch of humanity, the music that comes from it, the art and the necessity that is music. Music's been with us forever. Earliest pre-recorded history, we find musical instruments. So music is fundamental. So our psychiatrist, actually on my first space flight, I actually brought a guitar up to Mir because that old guitar was getting in pretty bad shape. So I had a guitar made and brought it up to Mir, and it stayed on Mir for years, and then came back on the last shuttle, and it's in the Space and Aviation Museum in Ottawa. So our psychiatrists recognized that if this was really important to the cosmonauts, and it's important to a lot of the astronauts now on station, we should provide them with a guitar. So before the shuttle program was ended, they manifested a guitar, and they went to the local guitar shop in Houston, walked in the door. They weren't musicians, but they walked in and said, "Hey, we need a small acoustic guitar. What do you guys recommend?" And the guy at the guitar shop, unknowingly, grabbed a nice parlor guitar, kind of a smaller box on it, that was made in Vancouver fortunately, by Larry Vey. So they actually gave him a Larry Vey guitar, a Canadian guitar. And so the psychiatrists, psych support people said, great, they bought 2 of them, one to go up to the space station and one to stay in bond on the ground, so they knew exactly what they had. And so imagine the delight for me when I find out that I'm going to go up and live on the space station, and not only is there already a guitar up there, but it's a Canadian guitar. How perfect.
I think we have one here.
I have a guitar right out here. Yep.
Let me grab that. Hold on.
Sure, it's a Larry Vey.
Is it a Larry Vey?
Yeah, I don't know if it's out of its case or not.
Here, I'll bring it. Oh.
You need a hand?
Here, I'll bring it in here.
Just lay it down, I'll get it out.
All right.
Are you a guitar player?
No, not at all. I'm barely a singer.
Barely a singer. You and Dylan both.
This is your use of social media and music grounded you, made you real.
It's held its tune.
And I think this is what was amazing about your time up there, and what just ignited the imagination of everyone. So let's talk about the song. Let's talk about the one that got more than 1 million hits.
Well, really,
the guy dies at the end, right?
we did 2 big songs. Ed Robertson and I wrote one that was sung along by almost 1 million kids nationwide. A song called "Is Somebody Singing." I was really delighted with that, how that worked out. It was just a really nice Canadian project organized by the Canadian Space Agency. A really great thing to be part of, and it's got legs. It's lasting a long time. In parallel, though, I'd recorded a Christmas carol, a space Christmas carol up there. It kind of got a lot of interest. Many tens of thousands of people had watched it, and so my son, who was doing a lot of social media, Evan, said, "Dad, you got to record Space Oddity." And I was like, "Space Oddity? Why would I do Space Oddity? It's kind of a druggy song from the '60s where the astronaut dies at the end. Why would I do that? That's not a good story." And he said, "Dad, you're not doing it for you. You're doing it for everybody else." So it kind of made me think. So I said, "Well, if you'll rewrite the words so that the astronaut lives, then I'll record it." And so I did. The first time I didn't use a guitar at all. The first time through, I just did a karaoke with it, basically. I had a headset on with David Bowie doing his rendition. I just sang along with it. But I recorded my voice separately into GarageBand on an iPad. And when I listened to my voice, though, it was like, hey, that sounds better than I thought. It sounds different. It sounds wistful.
Tell me about that. In space, in space, there is an artificial atmosphere within the ISS. However, there's still many differences than the air we're breathing in this room right now. Tell me about the acoustics.
It's a weird place to have a recording studio, for sure, because number one, the guitar is weightless. So when you're trying to move your hand up and down the neck, the guitar flies all over the place. Number two is it's noisy. In order to stay alive on a spaceship, you're living in a machine, and the ambient noise is like being in the back of a bus. So it's not a great place to play an acoustic guitar, just because there's so much racket all the time. So I was looking for a quiet place to play. And actually my little sleep pod, my crew quarters, was tiny, but because the Larry Vey was small enough, it would just sort of fit in there. That I sort of twisted myself, get the whole guitar in there. So it was not studio quality, but it was the best weightless studio ever. So I recorded inside my sleep pod, and I just had a microphone and listening on a headset and going through an iPad and recorded the vocals to Space Oddity. I liked kind of the wistful nature of how the voice sounded. It wasn't what I expected. I liked it enough that I sent it to a friend of mine named Em Greiner, who she's a Juno-nominated kind of artist here in Canada, and she used to sing with Bowie. So I thought, hey, what do you think of this? And she said, we shouldn't do that song. He did lots better songs than that. But when she heard it, she went, hey, that's really good. Let me put some piano underneath. And then she got a friend of hers named Joe Corcoran to say, well, let me put some instrumentals underneath. And they put together, which I thought was a great audio track. When I got it back in space, this is my evening project on the space station, emailing back and forth. And when I got the audio track back, I went, I want to redo my vocals. So I just with their instrumentals, I laid down a couple vocal tracks on top using the layer nature of GarageBand. And then together we sort of had this really good, kind of a nice version of this song. And then we're like, well, what do we do now? So in comes son Evan again, who says, you need to make a video. You're in space, Dad. It has to be video. It's like, well, we got to get Bowie's permission to make a video. So how are we going to get Bowie's permission? So I asked Em to contact him if she could, and Yeah, but this was not a high priority thing. And, I'm busy until finally it was a month before landing. I've already been up there 4 months. And Evan says, okay, Dad, it's now or never. You're running out of time. If you don't get permission and get this thing right now, you're never going to do it. You're going to regret it for the rest of your life. I'm like, I've got some stuff going on up here, but okay.
Sounds like your son.
Okay. So, yeah, it was our son. So I got him to send out a note and send Bowie a copy. And finally, just a few weeks before landing, we got a note back from Bowie saying, hey, I heard it. I really like your track. Yeah, go ahead, make a video. So now I have to make a video. So I grabbed a camera on the weekend and just floated around the spaceship, filming myself recording the song, and sent it down to the Canadian Space Agency. They were great about it. They used weekends and evenings to process the video, get it to my son. He started editing it together with a friend of his, and then he said, "Hey, Dad, we need a couple more shots, different views." So I managed to get those last couple camera angles for him. And a guy named Andrew Tidby did the editing. And then finally, then we had a real serious emergency on the space station in the last week, where the space station started leaking ammonia, and we had an emergency spacewalk, and the whole health of the space station was threatened. Big deal. So I wasn't thinking about that music thing at all. And it wasn't until we'd done an emergency spacewalk and solved all that problem, and it was Sunday night, and we're coming home Monday. And that was the night that Evan released that video. And I watched it that night going, wow, a lot of people watching that. That's cool. But then the next day I was flying a spaceship home. I was busy. I was, Roman Romanenko was the commander, but I was the pilot of the Soyuz in the left seat. And so it was a busy day. But after we landed, rolled to a stop at the field in Kazakhstan, and there's a safety or life support technician comes in, opens up the hatch, and starts dragging us out one at a time. First he dragged out Roman, because Roman was in the middle, and then Tom was in the bottom, so he dragged out Tom. And I'm still up there hanging in my straps, feeling terrible. But in he comes, and he goes, Chris, привет, я видел твой клип, был прекрасно, молодец, which means, hey Chris, I saw your video, it was great, way to go. And I thought, this is my first person on Earth I've seen after being in space all that time. And he's already seen this video, and he's in a rural Kazakhstan right now. So I'm thinking, wow, a lot of people must have seen that video. But it was also interesting because I saw reflected in his face, it's a guy I'd known for years, like a shared pride in that we can do some pretty cool stuff in the space business. This is a neat thing. And he's part of the space business. And you could see that he was happy that he was there helping out and doing his part of it for something that can be as cool and fun as recording Space Oddity on a space station.
Give me a bit of it, could you?
Oh, and this?
Yeah, sure. We'll be forgiven.
Let me use a space pick.
Okay. Oh, and let me see it. Let's see this space
sure.
bit.
There you go.
It is. I don't know. Can you?
It's from our mission patch. So yeah, I can sing a little bit if you want. Sure. Let's see. Where will we start? Ground control to Major Tom. Ground control to Major Tom. Lock your Soyuz hatch and put your helmet on. Ground control to Major Tom. Commencing countdown, engines on. Detach from station and may God's love be with you. Big building instrumental part. This is ground control to Major Tom. You've really made the grade. And the papers want to know whose shirts you wear. But it's time to guide the capsule if you dare. Oh, skip a little. Ground control to Major Tom. The time is near, it's not too long. Can you hear me, Major Tom? Can you hear me, Major Tom? Can you hear me, Major Tom? Can you hear at my Now, wait. Now.
I have no beat.
That's it. Just those two claps. That's all you need. There you go. A little bit of Major Tom in the morning.
I love it. That's absolutely great. And you know what? Evan needs to be complimented. He doesn't get complimented enough because he ran your social media campaign, and he wrote that, and he coordinated that, and he edited that.
He made kind of a revelation in social media. I mean, he really wrote the book on how to do it. I mean, the Canadian Space Agency, don't get me wrong, they did phenomenal work. They worked and in harmony with Evan, but he was an intrinsic part of it also. Did a great job, and I mean, he teaching how to do social media now because he just had such a knack for it, and he worked so hard at it, 15 hours a day, 7 days a week, the whole flight he supported, and it made a big difference. It brought the experience to the world, which I'd been trying to do my whole career, and with this technology and a hard work of a small group of people, we managed to share that new human experience with millions of people around the world.
And just wrapping up, I'd like to sort of, this is going to go across the country. Canadians need to know what we do coast to coast for the space program. So what's happening in this country for the space program?
Well, people should take a huge amount of pride in it in Canada, actually. We were the third nation on Earth in space. After the Soviet Union with Sputnik and then the Americans, we were next. We were third. We've had as many people in space as any other country in the world except the Soviet Union and the US. Our little space program has been as significant as anybody else's except the two giants. And our genius, our technological capability has been world-class in communication satellites, in robotics. I mean, if you take the Canadarm, it went from this early little probe on the first satellite through to this great big capable arm on the shuttle, through to this huge robot arm on the space station, through to robots now that do brain surgery in Foothills Hospital in Calgary, where a surgeon sits in another room with hand controllers just like an astronaut, through to, I mean, it's on the new $5 bill. I mean, that type of cultural and technological impact came from Canada's space program. And it's all run out of the Canadian Space Agency in just outside of Montreal. But there are companies and little laboratories right coast to coast. I mean, in Halifax, there's Nautel, which is building solid-state electronics for future space engines. And in Vancouver, there's McDonald Detweiler, which is, you know, the builder of the space arm itself, and plus all the other technologies, and just little pockets of expertise. And universities, I flew experiments from Simon Fraser University, from there was a life sciences experiment that does blood analysis research that came out of Quebec City and a company in Quebec and universities in Quebec. University of Waterloo did life sciences experiments. There's just right across the country, there's areas of great expertise, and maybe even more importantly, great challenge and inspiration that come from doing something new and challenging our citizens to recognize that we can play a significant part in the exploration of the rest of the universe. And Canada does it really well.
I like you. I honestly, you know what?
I like you too.
I like you. You're not arrogant. You're not. You've been to space. You are a YouTube sensation. You have every reason to be an arrogant jerk. But you're using your celebrity to further not just the space program, but you talk about just simply if you want to one day become a firefighter, or you want to one day become a brain surgeon. This is the way you can do it for yourself. You're teaching, you're leading by example. You're doing such a wonderful
That's
job.
Really nice of you to say.
And people relate to you, and I cannot believe the reaction I've had. You dropped by our station. I mean, we've had many celebrities in. I've never seen that reaction where everyone swoops to you. I want my picture taken with Chris. I want my picture taken with Commander Hadfield.
Yeah.
And
you know, to me, it's just like I made a whole bunch of friends. It's what it feels like worldwide. They're just dying for me to come over to the UK and Ireland right now. I mean, they're just
but
they're just asking. But they're not. I'm not going over there to be celebrated. Yeah, I'm going over there to meet the people that I've already made friends with, which is a great position to be in. I love it.
You're going over there for another reason, and that is to be excited about what you do. I can
Well, yeah.
You're almost exploding with the pictures you've taken, the things you've seen.
If you'd seen them, wouldn't you be?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a phenomenal human experience. And I'm just trying to figure out a way to get as many people to see what we did together as possible. We did this thing. This wasn't some external body that came in and said, go do this. We figured out. Canada put together a whole bunch of sweat and toil to let us go do this thing. And I did it on behalf of a lot of people. So I want them to see what we did because it inspires people. It shows us a different perspective on ourselves, and it has 9-year-old kids making decisions with their lives as a result of it. So it's an important thing, and I'm just delighted to be the guy in the middle of it.
Don't ever stop being excited. Don't ever stop jumping out of that chair.
I'm not planning to. It's just too much fun.
Okay, do me one favor. Just finish off by saying, "Hey, Canada, to infinity and beyond." right here.
All right. Canada, to infinity and beyond.
All right. And go to black.